my resistance, and I think this comes into perhaps a little bit deeper of a thing, especially because I'm working with a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs, they don't think that they're that exciting. So
Mhm.
I'm like, no, there's something about you. And like, exactly how there's like, oh, there's no face to these brands, but it's like, but do you want to be just like them or do you want to differentiate yourself?
Hey, hey, my feel good friends. So, I'm going to be really honest with you about this week's conversation with my guest, Sarah DeGeorge. We geek out. And it's because we are chatting about something that is super, super important when it comes to being as mindful as possible with your marketing. We chat about the best way to kind of take everything in that you're doing and analyze your data, which you might be surprised, data doesn't just mean analytics, my friends, and just how to use all of this information from what we are creating to improve and make sure we're on the right track for our business and create a business that's sustainable for us, which I love. That's why we're geeking out. And I know that you're going to love this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. So I cannot wait to share it with you. But before we dive in, I do want to say that the Social Map, our 4-week online course, is coming in hot, my friends. If you're new to the podcast, the Social Map is my 4-week online program where I share with you all of the methods for marketing your business on social media without wasting your precious time in a way that actually works for you, speaks to your audience, and is sustainable for you so that you can keep showing up and get the best results possible. I love the Social Map. I love all of my former students. And so if you have been loving listening to the podcast and learning from me, definitely add your name to our Social Map waitlist. You can find that at feelgoodsocial.com/social map. And the doors are opening very, very soon for enrollment. The program is going to be running for 4 weeks live through June. And this is actually the last time that I'm going to be running the course live, where you have full access to me. You can get my feedback on everything that you learn and all the content that you're producing. Oh, I love it so much. And this is the final time that I'm actually going to be running this program live. So definitely add your name to our wait list. It's feelgoodsocial.com/social map. That's where you can find all of the information. Add your name to the wait list so that you don't miss out. I would absolutely love to have you in our awesome program. All right, my friends, without further ado, let's dive in. Hey, friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. You know what your brand vibe is on Instagram? I have a new fun quiz that's just for you, my friend. I, of all people, know how hard it is to figure out how the heck you're supposed to translate your brand to the gram. And with this quick 7-question quiz, we will help you hone in on your brand's personality, voice, and visuals so that you can show up consistently and create content that looks beautiful and feels on brand for you. This quiz is so awesome. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Plus, the results will help you show up in the best way for you. If you'd like to check out our new brand vibe quiz, just head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz. Pretty easy. Head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz to find out what your brand's vibe is on social media and start showing up there for your brand. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you on the show, lady.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. This is just like the best part of my day, honestly. And I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh my gosh, that makes me just so excited. I did already introduce you a little bit in the intro, but I'd love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you serve?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah DeGeorge. I am a Philadelphian. Love it. And also crazy cat lady, if you will. But when I'm not doing either of those, I'm a digital marketing specialist. So I work primarily with small to mid-sized businesses, and I offer, the entire digital marketing gamut. I do social media, I do content creation, paid marketing, think Google Ads, so on and so forth, as well as public relations. So we do like a real integrated, holistic look at individuals' business or a business that's in growth. And we really try to either create a digital marketing strategy or audit an existing marketing strategy to take it to the next level. So that's a little bit about what I do. Super
Yeah.
exciting.
Oh, so awesome. All of the things. I love it. And I also love that you started with I'm a Philadelphian and a crazy cat lady. Like anyone who, self describes themselves as a crazy cat lady, I'm on board with.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where I feel like I've learned that I need to say that first, especially so when I work with my clients, they always like, since I work with people, you want to work with people that you want to get on the phone with every week too. And they know that, like, all right, Sarah, tell me about your cats. Tell me about the community cats that you take care of in Philadelphia. Take care of your own. I only have two, everybody, just so nobody's worried or anything. But they always give me that first, like, all right, let's shoot the breeze for a few minutes and you can tell me all about your cats before we jump into digital marketing. So I'm always like, I should probably bring that up when I'm talking about anything regarding my life. So
Oh my gosh,
there
I
you have it.
love it. Yeah. Oh, girl. I'm like one of those people. I can be really great at small talk, but I can also be super, super awkward at small talk. And so I
Mhm.
love the fact that, like, well, firstly, that just says so much about you and your brand and your person,
Mhm.
like how you can bring your personal life and these little quirks about yourself into your brand and like make it a part of your business. But also, it's just so nice, like, as a client to be like, okay, I'm hopping on this call with Sarah. I know I can just start by asking her about her cats and she'll always have something to say.
I know. I'm just like, hey, at least it's something and people can attach themselves to it. So they're like, yeah, at least we know that'll, and then that always leads to some other weird conversation, most likely. And then we get down to business. And I feel like by that point, we've had a few laughs, like even, the conversation is going. It's not so much just, like, hello, like, let's get into business. There's always time for that. And, then we switch into that gear and it just makes things flow a little bit better. And it's a very authentic approach. It's my way of being authentic and also something that I try to integrate into the digital marketing strategy with the business that I work in is how can we be authentic so that, and mindful as we'll, jump into about the marketing so that it feels natural and it doesn't feel forced.
Oh, I love this so much. I love that we're diving straight into this conversation too. And yeah, it's reminding me, it like relaxes your client in a way. I've actually had this conversation with a lot of my one-on-one coaching clients recently, like how to communicate with their clients, you know what I mean? And it's kind of this thing you have to figure out. But if you can just kind of like start the conversation in an easy way and like make people feel more comfortable, I think you'll definitely like get more done. Like that's one of those things that you can do to really ease the situation, I think.
Exactly. And it helps you get to know them as well, especially, working with small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. Like a lot of what their business is also who they are. And like sometimes when you start to approach like working with a client, they might not. Well, I mean, granted, there is that wall that you kind of keep between the personal and the professional. But for example, like all of a sudden I'm working with a client, I didn't know that, they have a dog. And I was like, well, that's something that's relatable. And like, if you can find a way for it to authentically tie into, your business, a day in the life of some sort of social posting, why not talk about your dog? Like, I want to know about your dog. I think other people want to know about your dog too. So things of that nature. So having that kind of connection can really help you understand who you are working with and ways that you can turn that into a part of your brand, at a comfort level that is appropriate to who you are as a person. Some people are a little bit more comfortable. Some people are like, I want to keep this a little bit more professional. Don't want to show pictures of my kids for privacy reasons, of course. I don't want to do, there's only so much, but there's like, it's good to know that about them because then you can make decisions easier when it comes to the content creation and social media marketing.
Oh, I do love that. I know I've actually been kind of like mulling over that fact, like that topic or concept a lot lately because I've been creating a lot of content around like storytelling and how to do it in a purposeful way that's strategic
Mhm.
and whatever, whatever, whatever. And I do teach like it's always a good idea to make sure that your stories kind of come back to your brand in some way, and really align with your
Mhm.
messaging and prove a point and all of these things. But there are those pieces, those connection pieces is what I'm kind of calling them in my head. That's like just like adding to the relatability of your brand. And does it
Yeah.
have to be like the core of your messaging? Like, does your dog have to be the core of your messaging? Like, no, but it's something that you can add in little bits and pieces, little snippets here to really drive that deeper connection with your audience, I think.
I agree. It's one of those things where, yeah, exactly. Like you said, it might not be, you don't all of a sudden have to have your dog as your logo and rebrand and everything and like go through this whole, digital strategy overhaul. But the point being is like, if it's something that connects to your user base in more than just like your product or service, maybe it's just like the affinity group that a lot of the people fall into where
Mhm.
they have an interest in that and it's complementary to what you're talking about. It's just a good way to humanize. I think that's the thing. We've
Mhm.
come to a point where I think a lot of us can tell what is just an ad and what is truly a conversation piece where they're trying to they're selling something, but it's from a authentic, meaningful place. So having those little connections make it so you're like, okay, there is a human on the other end of this. This isn't just an advertisement because I clicked on something 3 weeks ago and you know Google, Instagram, Facebook, whoever thinks I'm interested in this. So I think that's a
Mhm.
major component right now. So
Oh, girl, we are so on the same page with all of that. The brand vibe stuff that I've been talking about a lot, like how to
it's
create your brand's persona. It's exactly that. It's like create your brand, like humanize your brand on social media. I'd love to hear from you. Do you ever run into clients who are like, don't want to do that? Like they resist that. I run into that all the time where they're like, well, Nike doesn't have a face to their brand or whatever it is. Do you ever run into that with your clients?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have that type of conversation. I just have the resistance. My resistance, and I think this comes into perhaps a little bit deeper of a thing, especially because I'm working with a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs. They don't think that they're that exciting. So
Mhm.
I'm like, no, there's something about you. And like, exactly how there's like, oh, there's no face to these brands, but it's like, but do you want to be just like them or do you want to differentiate yourself? And I think that that's the conversation piece is like, we're not trying to be like Nike. We're not trying to be like this. We're trying to be like who you are because maybe whatever you have to offer is just as good in a different way. And I think it's just they don't think that there's something super exciting about them. But like at the end of the day, like I sit down and I'm like, oh man, there's not that much, exciting about me either. But like I'll still, it's just something where you have to have that conversation. And like, I'm never here to force somebody to like all of a sudden talk about their personal life. But I think that sometimes there is that resistance because in our minds, from the personal, we live our lives each day. So we're like, well, there's nothing more about my business and me that seems super exciting. But quickly, I'll tell a story. I was at my cousin's wedding and I was sitting next to her friend who happened to be a brain surgeon. And she was so into my discussion on Google Ads that I thought was so boring because she was a brain surgeon. But the idea is like, for me, that brain surgery, super excited. She was like, oh no, it's really boring, I swear. But then she thought Google Ads were like super cool. And I'm so it's just like the perfect example of I think we all are much more interesting than we give ourselves credit for. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of have that conversation and then we meet at a place that is at a comfort level because again and you definitely bring it up a lot about consistency and if there's something that somebody cannot be consistent with because of a discomfort then we want to find a way that we can meet them at a place where their marketing can feel consistent, they can work with it and they can build upon it and it's mindful, it's sustainable and you go from there.
Yeah. Okay. I love this because you are all about mindful marketing. And I love
Yeah.
that. that like phrase. So tell me what does mindful marketing mean to you?
Yeah. So when I bring it up, like I'll take you back a little bit. So I
Mhm.
think as solopreneurs ourselves, I don't know if you've run into this, but there have been times where I've just like all of a sudden have been thinking too much like in the past how something worked, or I'm so focused on the future. And I ended up at a point where I was just like going full speed ahead, and I ended up at a really bad burnout in 2018. And like
Mhm.
I'm happy to admit it, again, being authentic, like I'm happy to share that I took on too much. I overworked myself. I ended up getting very sick, very burnt out. And I needed to take a step back. So I was like, well, I'm always trying to do this with my clients. Like I also need to think about it for myself. So mindful marketing comes from that experience, but also the idea that a lot of what we do in marketing, we're looking again at the past, what worked, and we're looking at the future of what will work. But we're rarely looking at just like what's happening in this moment, whether that is analytics, whether that is who we are as a business owner, our business goals, who is our current customer base, and like what are they telling us right now that can make those decisions. So that's
Mhm.
mindfulness, because when we think of mindfulness, it's just like living in the present. And marketing typically does not tend to live in the present because we're looking at past data, looking at future goals. And so this is like an important part because we miss those moments, because sometimes, especially when I talk about my burnout, there was a lot of little inklings that things were not working out, but I didn't sit in the present to say like, okay, I think I'm doing too much. I think I'm saying yes to people that are great businesses, individuals, but maybe they're not my ideal client, and they could be working with somebody who can better serve them, with time and the amount of, effort needed to take their company to the next business. So whether you're doing the work for somebody else or you're doing the work for yourself and your business, that's where the mindful marketing approach comes in. And obviously it's just something, I came up with because I was like, this is definitely mindfulness, but in a business standpoint versus mindfulness as we know, in say yoga or meditative
Mhm.
purposes. So that's kind of where it came from, why I've adopted it, to make sure that when I'm working with my clients and also when I'm working on my own business, that I'm staying very focused, because I'm no good to them if I'm no good to myself on that end. So always checking in, looking at the data, as unsexy as that could be, sometimes, just and seeing how I'm feeling in the moment and being able to move, like to make little micro adjustments as I go instead of going to the finish line and then being like, "Woof, I got to backtrack and figure out where it went wrong." So
Oh man, for sure. I
that's
love, well, firstly, I definitely want to go touch on like how to look at data mindfully. It definitely.
yeah.
But also I love that we kind of went into what it means to you and stuff. And I love that story about going through burnout and realizing, oh, like I need to be more present and mindful of like myself. And also like this can be applied to my business and like taking that, because I think that sometimes when people could hear mindful marketing, they might just think like thoughtful marketing, like be very aware. But I love that you bring it back to like not only looking at the past, not only looking forward to the future, but also looking at your business in the present. That makes a lot of sense to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, that's just like what's one thing, because I was just sitting there and I'm just like, I'm always looking at data that has nothing to do with like the moment that I'm in. And maybe and there have been times where like in that moment there was a piece of data showcasing like we need to pivot this in a different direction, or this isn't working but this could work. And but by the time that you're already looking at it and placing it towards the future, there's like missed opportunity. And again, that could be in your data for social media marketing, that could just be in your own life, like just personally too. So I guess I know this is, feel good social and everything. So I guess, you want to feel good and you want to
Mhm.
feel good with social too. So it's a nice balance between both ends, the personal and the professional.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into social media analytics and data that you get from that and how to look at it in the present. Because I even struggle with this. I'm interested to hear your approach to it because especially with COVID in like 2020 and all those things, like it was really hard to predict. I teach my students not to really look at their daily data, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times statistics, like you can't, it's supposed to be like an accumulation of numbers, not just like
Mhm.
one day, and often too, this, I'm sure, like the ego can get involved, the focus on like the number of likes and followers and all those things.
Mhm.
And you see it going up and down daily. And it's like, no, it's really just even over time, guys. But like, how do you approach then kind of like the present, like looking at your present social media data like that?
Yeah, of course. There's obviously the numerical data, but I think of when I say data in terms of mindfulness, like taking into account what you know right now. Are you getting, I'm going to use a little bit beyond social media as well, but what are people saying in the comments? Are you getting any feedback? Because this is also data points too. And this is something that people are presently taking the time to post. Again, like you said, likes, all of the vanity points, likes, followers, those rise and fall, and those kind of need to be looked at on a longer term. But what kind of data are you getting? What are individuals really resonating with in the present time? Because then that present moment can give you an idea of how you can take, say, that social media post that you did and extrapolate on it, give more information to it so that you're creating a better future. Again, we're always going back to the past, we are going back to the future, but we're skipping things. We're looking at like a comment and we're just thinking, reply to it and just say something. But what is that comment saying, and how can that present moment be carried over? And how are you feeling in this? Did you make this post? People are resonating with it and you're like, this is something I want to continue with. Or did you make this post because you saw other people making this post? It doesn't really fit your brand and you're not really going to continue with it. So those types of things as well, because there's that balance between who we are as a personal brand and best practices, which are best practices, but there's best practices and then there's best personal practices. So I think that's the thing. You start doing something because you think you should. You do these posts that really they work with your business, but they don't align with, again, you, who you are. And people are giving you feedback, but you're also not checking in with your personal feedback. Like, am I going to continue with this for 5 months, or am I just going to give up on this in 3? And then again, going back to consistency, it's better to show up and be consistent than like do something for a few weeks and then nix it, because then all of that data growth becomes a moot point because it's over. You're not doing it anymore because you weren't checking in with yourself in the present moment to see, like, okay, this might be working, but is this something I'm going to continue with in my business when I'm presenting it? So I hope that that kind of answers it. It's a mix between the data points, of course, looking in analytics, if you have, Instagram analytics and seeing when people are engaging the most, who is engaging, what are their interests, but then also ensuring that you're finding a way to create sustainable social media marketing as well. That isn't just
Mhm.
going to be gone in a few weeks when you're like, this just doesn't feel good and this feels icky, or this doesn't really have anything to do with me or my business. It's just something that works, for other people. But going from there and building upon that, that's where the
Yeah.
mindfulness does come in. Because again, we're not checking in too often. When I speak with people, they're like, yeah, I haven't really thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense because I'm like 6 months into this social media campaign. Or if it's not social media, somebody's like, I started doing these blogs, but I don't really want to anymore because I just got the idea from somebody else. Instead of, maybe 2 months in, they check in with themselves and they have just like a mindful marketing moment. And they're like, I really like doing video better. So maybe I can take these blogs that I'm writing, and instead of spending all this time doing this, I can turn them into IGTV videos, for example. That feels more authentic to me. And you've now saved time. You could, figure out a new way to present this information that's easier and, works for you. You're going to continue with it. So that was a big
Mhm.
word vomit. I apologize. So, but
No,
that's
I was
the thing.
eating up. Girl, I'm vibing with you so hard right now because exactly like, and I'm so glad I asked about like the analytics and stuff like that because I do agree. And as soon as you said, I think a lot of times, yeah, we do all think of like data as the numbers, the analytics, especially my my clients,
Mhm.
and my students. And this is something that I've had to realize myself in my business too, is the numbers will tell us, but there's so many other factors that are data. Like you said, you gave us that permission that we do need to consider and look at. And it is, did you use holistic data analysis? Did you use the word holistic? Or I feel like there's some sort of,
Oh, I might have said holistic in the beginning when I was talking about like my approach to how I look, but holistic because you want to look at the whole business. Like
Mhm.
what is going on your website? What is going on off your website? What is going on in your email marketing? What is going on behind the scenes? Like all of this stuff because it all integrates into just like your time commitments, what you enjoy doing. Are you going to outsource this? There's so many concepts that when you look at it from a holistic standpoint, you can really get those data points, especially if you have multiple social media accounts. Where are they coming from? Like there's just it's a living, breathing organism, if you will, if we're going to get super, descriptive, because things are constantly changing. You're changing in your business. Social media algorithms are changing. So sitting down and just kind of taking that moment to be like, okay, this is the information I'm given. And I do want to add also, and this isn't, I don't want to say competitor data or reviews in a way that you're looking at your competitors and you're like, oh, but what are the pain points that people are describing in competitor data in which you can say, like, in this very moment, I can see that a lot of people are missing this piece of, if they're getting X, Y, but they're not getting Z, I can provide Z. So that's my differentiating factor. And if you don't check in that present moment, you might miss that data. And by that point, somebody else might have taken that little niche from you. So that was another part. I was like, oh yeah, and competitor data is also data analytics as well. You're not trying to steal their, secrets, their trade secrets, but you're trying to see where you can fit in and solve a problem that maybe they just don't have the means to solve as well, whether it's product or
Mhm.
service that you're selling, especially for solopreneurs that are already balancing a million different things. It's like sliding into those little pieces are like nice little, like, ooh, I didn't really need to think too hard on that one. Like, yeah, I can do that. Let's just, carve that little piece of the niche out for myself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely teach that too. Like
Mhm.
I try to shift my student and clients like mindset when it comes to looking at competitors to think of them as like inspiration and
Yes.
for yourself, for your business. And it's like, what are they doing that you love that you can also do in your own way? What are they doing that is not like the way you would do it and you can differentiate yourself in that way, that sort of thing. And so I'm glad you brought that up. And also, yeah, that's how I teach people to look at their analytics is kind of that holistic way. And so many people do get stuck on the numbers, but exactly, it's like pay attention to what is working, like just in general, like just pay attention, think critically about the comments you're receiving, about the content that you're consuming in your industry and outside of your industry. Like this critical thinking as an entrepreneur, like from that outside perspective, I think is so important, especially for analyzing and kind of pivoting and figuring out what to do next. But like you said, a lot of our listeners are wearing all of the hats in their business still, and it can feel like a little overwhelming. Do you have any tips for how someone can kind of analyze and keep track of all of that holistic data in a way that like isn't going to make them feel like their head is a buzzing
Yeah.
beehive?
No, I mean, this is going back to something you said earlier too, but I always schedule and I hate it. Like, I feel like there's like how people have like money dates with their money, but
Mhm,
like
mhm.
have an analytics date basically. Set a time that you're going to sit down, look at and like keep a running list. Like what have people said that was very stand out? What is the data, of course? How are you feeling? I mean, I guess you could say like that's like your little personal journal entry. And how is this all connecting to each other? And it could be once a month, like you said. Don't look at the day-to-day data because it just rises and falls. There are days that are better on social media. There are days that are not so good. And that's just the algorithm. That's just in general. But see that really personalized data that people are saying, I really like this that you do. And you can then go back and be like, I really enjoy doing this, or maybe I can do this, but I enjoy this better. If you are a word person, maybe you don't like having yourself on video. So you do write a blog series about it. And then you create little bite-sized social media posts to then lead to the blog and continue to build upon it from there, or vice versa. Like, is it where is this data coming from and how can you build upon it? So taking that time to just have an hour just to look at the data and create even a Google Doc and say, like, just date it. I know this sounds probably very basic, or even, pen and paper, and just write things down, write good feedback, write what that feedback meant to you. How is that going to be a component of your business? And then, say, we had X amount of people sign up because I started this social media campaign and people said this. And, what does that say about the future? What does that say about the past? Where is that growth? But then also, how am I feeling in this moment? That's just like
Mhm.
how I look at it and approach it, because I need to find that time. Because again, just like you, we're wearing many hats and I'm talking to people about this, but it's also something that I need to schedule time for as well, especially for myself. And I also encourage people I work with to really sit down, because then we can work better when they say, I'm really not feeling, so great about this, because then we can make that adjustment quick instead of them just kind of being like, and then 5 months down the line, they're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And you're like, oh, we could have changed this months ago. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh, man, lady, I'm loving this conversation. I hope everyone who's listening is geeking out just as much as we are because it's so true. And I'm over here like thinking, so I have an online course, the social map. It's going to open in May. The wait list is probably open when this episode comes out. But yeah, in the social map course, that's kind of how I approach teaching people to I teach to keep a story bank, like for caption inspiration ideas or topic
Mhm.
inspiration ideas throughout, like just an ongoing list, and also keep a visuals bank and just train yourself to be aware throughout your day of like, oh, like I'm drinking my coffee and it's like nice lighting right now. Snap a shot, add it to your visuals bank so that when you're batch planning your content, you can give a whole bank of visuals to use, And I'm over here like, shoot, I might need to re-record the lesson about like looking at analytics and like kind of revising your plan and stuff. Cause I definitely in the social map right now, I teach like to look at it kind of in that intuitive, holistic way. Like not only look at the data, but also ask yourself, okay, how was I feeling? Or like, how do I feel about what this data is telling me? What's my gut telling me? That sort of thing. But I love this is kind of reminding me of like, maybe we need to do like an analytics bank or like a data bank or something like throughout your
Mhm.
month, like taking screenshots of comments that like make you think something like, oh, is this person telling me something? Is this some data that I can learn from? And then going back and like analyzing the data, like for your data date or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, that is a no, but that I mean that yeah, I think that that's a great kind of like additional piece. But
Mhm.
in the meantime, everything else about what you just stated is 100% like, because in a way, like, even if you're not thinking about the marketing as a whole piece, when you're doing like the visual banks and the graphics and everything like that, you're in a moment and you're thinking, this resonates with my audience. This is business. So that is a bit of mindfulness too, because you're not just thinking about like all the things you could have done after the fact, or all the things you did
Mhm.
last month. You're in this moment and you're like, this could be a good piece of content later. So it's like taking that same concept, but taking it in a in the same direction, but like a different piece of the whole marketing world, whether
Uh,
it's copy, the graphics,
yes,
the
I know. That's
analytics.
where
I mean, there's so many pieces.
I feel like, I'm like a word nerd. And so that's exactly what I was thinking too, as you were saying, okay, like, I don't know, this topic has been coming up a lot for me lately is how can I make every action I do in my business as valuable as possible? Right. So, like, every piece of content I create, how can I make this as valuable as possible? Repurposing or like making sure I'm spending time in a way that's going to give me the most ROI, all those things.
Yeah.
But also, like, this is reminding me, it's like, okay, cool. Like, not only are we just kind of analyzing the sentiment of our audience throughout our month and being aware and thinking critically about that, but like, if you take a screenshot of things, that's like also ideal client research in a way where it's like that could be really great data for you for adjusting your messaging. I always teach people to
Mhm.
like not only pay attention to the ideas your ideal customers have and the way they see the world, but also pay attention to the language that they use, because like
Mhm.
language is so, so powerful. And if you can speak to someone with the same words that they're speaking to you, that like drives so much deeper connection and trust and all those things. We're going down a deep marketing geek
I
out
know.
hole right now. And
I
I
know.
love
We're like,
it.
I'm sitting here and I'm just like, yes, you are speaking my language. It's so funny. I would not have thought if I was to talk to like 17-year old Sarah, I'd be like, what are you geeking out about marketing?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't even know what this means. What is search engine optimization? I really like back then, search engine optimization was still like a what kind of phrase, but it's just
Mhm.
interesting how now you're like, ooh, like if somebody brings
That
up
gets
this
me
like
excited.
I know, like, this is so exciting. Like, what but it's just funny, full circle moment. But
Definitely.
absolutely, I just think that there are so many components to marketing and having those and also kind of type again, just one last thought on the idea of the photo, like going back to, you as your business. That's also a key indicator of like, okay, this really resonates with me too. Like, I want to take this photo. Why do I want to take this photo? What does it say? What is it going to say to my audience? Why do I think that they enjoy this? And it's again, the
Mhm.
wheels are spinning. You're in that moment and you're kind of analyzing. Not saying that every time you take a photo, you need to go into this deep marketing sometimes you just need to enjoy the picture and then go back to your cup of coffee,
Mhm.
but also taking into account like why do I feel the need to snap this photo, because what data have I been given in the past that makes me feel this way in the present with my marketing.
Mhm.
So another kind of little key thing to kind of think of when those moments of inspiration happen as well. And sometimes, like, I will say this too, and just to add on with finding a purpose for every piece and making sure, I will say, because like I do the same thing, sometimes the purpose of a piece of marketing is to remind you that there was no purpose in that piece of marketing. So that's the other part, because I get into that hamster wheel, if you will, of like trying to figure out like how can I do this? But then sometimes you're just like, I have figured out any which way. And this is just a reminder of just like the marketing graveyard, if you will, of things that just they had good intentions, but they just missed the mark, or they just didn't. Again, I sat there and after I'm done, I'm like, I don't think that I'm going to continue on with this. So there is a purpose to it. So I wanted to add that just so you're not all, I've
Sometimes
heard
the
you say that
answer is that there's no answer.
answer. Yeah. And I've just like, that's something where I'm just like, how can I turn this? Like, I could do a video, I could do like a 5-part series, but do I want to, or should I just move on to something that I'm more inspired by?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add it in because you said that. And I was like, yeah, like I've been in that moment before too. And sometimes you gotta be like Rose and let Jack float into the ocean.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, I love as you were like bringing up the marketing graveyard, I immediately got like a visual of Lion King and the hyenas,
Yes, in the
the
elephant
elephant graveyard.
graveyard.
That's a,
Yes.
and so I love that we're bringing in these movie references right now. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's another thing. Besides Crazy Cat Lady, I'm also the movie reference person, to the point where my parents have literally turned around in the car and they're like, you have only communicated in movie quotes for the last 15 minutes. Are you okay? And I'm
oh
like,
my
yeah, I guess so.
gosh. I love that. That is hilarious for sure. And yeah, you should probably add that to your intro. I'm a Philadelphian, I'm a crazy cat lady, and I reference a lot of movies, okay? And I market.
I mean, very quickly, another client was talking and he said, like, my wife. And then immediately, I don't know if you've seen Borat, but when he goes, like, my wife,
Oh
and
yeah.
thankfully, this client knows what I'm talking about and has seen it. And he was just like, yes, that was a perfect reference point for quoting Borat.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love it. I know it's so funny. And like those little things, those little, oh my gosh, this totally is speaking of full circle, coming full
Yes,
circle because
exactly.
yeah, like bringing those things into your business and realizing like this could be a little connection piece like on a one-to-one level, or this could
Yeah.
be a connection piece. I was listening to a podcast the other day and this lady was like, yeah, Mean Girls is a pillar of my brand. She just like is obsessed with the movie Mean Girls, but like her ideal clients are all obsessed with it too. In a way, it's like a cult, you know what I mean? Like a cult, like group, like I don't know, mindset or something, you know, because
No, it's a
it's
lifestyle.
a
Mean
lifestyle.
Girls is a lifestyle. I mean, there are so many quotable lines. I'm visually remembering sitting in the movie theater with my friends watching Mean Girls when it just came out and we were
Yeah.
in middle school and this was like amazing and everything. Oh, so many good memories. But the point being is that like those little pieces, they almost help you in a way find your people, whether that people is your
Mhm.
customers, your clients, who you're working with, who you're selling to. Because again, going full circle in our conversation, it's a good indication of people that speak your language, understand you and your business, and even throwing in those little like, because I am obsessed with Mean Girls, I'm going to throw it in. And then people are going to be like, ha, yeah, on Wednesdays we do wear pink and everything like that. So it's just an interesting indirect way of almost finding people that would be a good customer or client by just bringing in enough of yourself that feels comfortable to you. So
Mhm. Ugh,
that's
girl.
all. Yes.
I love this conversation. And I could talk to you all day. I'm like,
Yes, I
I always
know. I'm
get to
sitting
the end of
there.
interviews. I'm like, oh man, I could talk to you
I know. We're like,
forever.
oh, we could just geek out all day. We should just like have one of those things where we just spitball for a few hours and just like have people join in on the conversation, just ask
Yes.
questions.
If I ever get in Clubhouse, I have a non-iPhone. I don't even know what I have.
I have
Samsung.
an iPhone also. Yes, I have a Samsung also. Are we the same person?
Maybe. Yeah, I know. Like the Clubhouse thing is interesting for sure. But yeah, like we should definitely do an Instagram live or something like that.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to share this episode with all of my lovely listeners. Can you please share how everyone can connect with you? Because I know they'll want to do that.
Yeah, of course. First and foremost, my website. If you want to see some of my past work, it's more of a portfolio page. I will say, pardon our appearance, it is getting redone. So if you go there anytime soon, it'll not be pretty, but it's SARDEGEORGE.com, Sarah DeGeorge. My Instagram is also Sarah DeGeorge, SARDEGEORGE. And my email, if you want to get in touch with me, is also sarahdegeorge@gmail.com. So I tried to keep it on brand, even though not all of the Sarah DeGeorges were available.
Mhm.
So Sarah DeGeorge had to be it. So
I
those are
love
the
it. It kind of
ways.
gives you like an edge, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm Sar, not Sarah. I'm Sarah DeGeorge. But
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us, lady. I have so enjoyed chatting with you, and I can't wait to share this with my people.
I'm so excited and thank you for having me on. This has been great.
How wonderful was that conversation with Sarah, you guys? I hope that you were nerding out just as much as we are. This is important stuff that we don't talk about as often. And I really hope that you were vibing with everything that we have to say. Again, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to us, I would absolutely love to chat with you. Sometimes it's nice to get a second pair of eyes on all of the content that you're creating. Hit me up at Feel Good Social on Instagram. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you add your name to our social map waitlist, my 4-week online course. It's about to run for the final time live, and I would absolutely love to have you in that program. Head to feelgoodsocial.com/social map. And that is where you'll find all the information about our awesome online course, and you can add your name to the waitlist. I hope that you have a wonderful week, my friend, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.